Welcome back. Let's go to our economics desk now, where we find reporter Nosipho Radebe opening up her diary for you this afternoon and just giving you the heads up of some of the big stories that they are watching. Nosipho, the contract for Ituba running the National Lottery has run its course, but there are lots of developments around there, including some legal intrigue about some of the steps that the minister has taken to try and ensure that there's no gap in between the two operators. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, certainly, Tulasizwe, there's been a lot of uncertainty when it comes to the National Lottery and who will be operating it going forward. But the minister has given us some sort of certainty over what we can expect going forward. We saw from that late night statement coming out yesterday clarifying that he has indeed approved or appointed then Ituba Holdings to continue then under a temporary license, that one valid for 12 months beginning from today. And that follows that uncertainty that ticket sales would stop from today, and that there was also the concerns around funding, because we know that the proceeds then from the lottery games, those go towards the charities that are funded by the National Lotteries Commission. So some certainty there, and we also heard from the National Lotteries Commission themselves, Commissioner Georgie Schultz just welcoming that decision then from the minister when it comes to this temporary appointment or this license then given to Ituba Holdings, and then that they say will then provide a seamless sort of transition then from the third operator to the fourth operator, which is SABC Holdings, and they're a consortium who also includes a gambling company, Gold Rush. They'll be taking over from next year when it comes to the operating of the National Lottery, and they've got 8 years then to run the National Lottery. But I was on the ground earlier today in terms of seeing what has been the transition, and we saw that their Ituba representatives were actually at some of the stores to ensure that there's that seamless transition from yesterday, because you'll recall that lottery players couldn't actually play for games in the future. So you could play for yesterday being Saturday, but you couldn't play for the games for today. So that's all now been cleared. So Ituba representatives are actually on the ground ensuring then that ticket sales continue, and that there isn't sort of any interruptions when it comes to the old sort of system and moving into the new system that's now going to be in operation then for the next 12 months.
Yeah, a full year, though, for a temporary license and the transition period. But I suppose it allows for the systems for SABC to set up their systems for them to be able to take over. What are you hearing around conversations around the policy issues, why it is so important that there should be no disruption in terms of, the lottery games, but also in terms of the programs that the National Lottery supports?
Yeah, certainly. Around the programs, there was definitely that concern that where would the funding then that goes to these charities under the National Lotteries Commission, what would happen to them during this time when we see ticket sales potentially drying up, as there'd be no one then to operate the National Lotteries games. And we see now that, of course, now that there's going to be that sort of seamless transition then, because SABC had mentioned that they would need an additional 9 months before they could actually take over from the third operator, Ituba Holdings. But there was also some rumblings, and you mentioned that earlier with regards to what's happening in the courts. We know some of the losing bidders, because SABC, they won out of the 8 bidders that had been hoping to get that sort of operating license then. When it comes to the National Lottery, we saw one of the losing bidders, Winamanje, taking then this decision to court with regards to saying that they had argued that this process favored Ituba, because they were the only ones with the actual financial muscle, technology muscle, to continue operating the national lottery. And that's when, in the statement, the minister said, that despite then the court saying that it was invalid or illegal for this 12-month temporary license, he was going ahead saying that another court had found that he indeed could actually appoint then a temporary license for the national lottery, and saying that he's appealing then this decision of the High Court in Gauteng. But we obviously are expecting or looking out that there might be more potential legal action when it comes to how Minister Kennedy's decision when it came to appointing Sizekaya to take over as fourth operator of the national lottery. So some court cases still, of course, continuing, and some that we're still possibly looking out for when it comes to who's running the national lottery.
Yeah, Nosipho, the line is beginning to let us down a little bit. So if you don't mind, we can come back to the repo rate in a moment. But let me just jump straight to the story around the fuel levy, because if we lose you, I would want you to have spoken to that. It's an important week in as far as the fuel levy is concerned. Tell me a bit more.
Yeah, certainly it's an important one when it comes to the fuel levy, Tilasis, where we've got the EFF taking then that decision around the fuel levy. They've taken it to court, urgent court application to stop really the proposed increase to the fuel levies that were outlined by the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana during his third iteration of the budget speech in Parliament. So the EFF argued then that if the fuel levy were to be increased, it is proposed to come into effect from the 4th of this month. That is Wednesday, the 4th of June, if I'm correct. That's when it will take effect. They say that it will actually hurt the poor and working class, and they don't want it to be increased. And we saw the previous court battles when it came to the budget, the first being the VAT increase, and that one was eventually scrapped after the EFF as well as the DA had taken that decision to court. And so now the fuel levy, that one is being taken to court. Understand that it will increase by about 16 cents per litre for petrol, 15 cents per litre for diesel, that coming to effect, as I mentioned, it's on the 4th of June this week. And then we also know that from the EFF, they argue that this decision by the minister, this fuel levy increase, is unlawful also because it wasn't increased wasn't done through the money bill. And so that's all going to be playing out in court. And the EFF is, of course, trying to push then for that to be halted before the 4th of June, which really is a tight deadline, Thulasizwe, as we talk today, being Sunday. The 4th of June is quite a close timeline. The EFF, that challenge also then adding another layer of uncertainty to the budget process, which we know has been marred by some divisions when it comes to the those within the GNU, and also just uncertainty when it comes to pushing it through in Parliament.
It's quite clear we'll all be well versed with the budgetary processes and how they play themselves out in the law and in Parliament by the time these political parties are done. Finally then, Nosipho, let's get to that repo rate. I did not expect that 25 basis points decrease. I didn't see it coming. I believe you'll be grappling with the implications and impact thereof and what it is that the Reserve Bank Monetary Policy Committee is trying to do with this decrease.
Yeah, certainly, Thulasizwe, where we saw the Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee deciding then to cut the repo rate by 0.25 basis points, taking it now to 7.25%. And that one, as you mentioned, there was obviously there's some relief there for heavily indebted consumers, as now the price then of their debt or how much they'll be paying back when it comes to their debt, that will be going down effective then from that decision by the MPC. We heard also from the Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago during that briefing last week, outlining then that the decision had been taken to decrease the repo rate, that it was also a good time for us to look then at lowering then South Africa's inflation target, because we know that that band that's been set by the Reserve Bank, that 3 to 6% target, he's outlined that it is quite high. We look at our peers in South Africa, and so as we see now, inflation is coming down.
I'm terribly sorry, Nosipho. The line has absolutely deteriorated, but I think we got enough, and I'm glad that we prioritized the fuel levy story there. That is Nosipho Radebe of our economics desk, opening up her diary for you in giving you a sense of the stories that will dominate the agenda in the coming days.